I never thought a casual coffee meeting could change the trajectory of my entire life, but here I am, sitting in what used to be his corner office on the 47th floor of Manhattan's most prestigious business address. My name is Alexandra Kavari, and just 18 months ago, I was nothing more than another ambitious entrepreneur trying to make it in New York's cutthroat tech industry. Now I'm the CEO of Vertex Innovations, a multi-billion-dollar technology empire that once belonged to the man who told me I'd never amount to anything without him. The gleaming cityscape stretches out before me as I adjust my position in the one handcrafted Italian leather chair that once cradled Marcus Sterling's ego. It still feels surreal, even after signing the final acquisition papers last week. The Wall Street Journal called it the hostile takeover of the decade, but they don't know the half of it. They don't know about the late-night threats, the sabotaged contracts, or the moment I discovered the fatal flaw in his seemingly impenetrable empire. Looking back, I can pinpoint the exact moment everything changed. It was a chilly October morning, and I had just launched my startup's first product, a revolutionary AI-driven financial analysis platform. The innovation blogs were buzzing, and several major investment firms had expressed interest. I was riding high on the possibilities when Marcus Sterling's office called. He wanted to meet. At 35, I thought I was prepared for anything the business world could throw at me. After all, I'd worked my way up from being a first-generation immigrant washing dishes in my parents' small restaurant to graduating top of my class at MIT, followed by 5 years at prestigious consulting firms. But nothing could have prepared me for that meeting with Marcus Sterling, the tech industry's most celebrated entrepreneur. The coffee shop he chose was one of those exclusive Manhattan establishments where a single cappuccino costs more than a meal for two elsewhere. I arrived 15 minutes early, my pitch deck perfectly prepared, heart racing with excitement. Here was my chance to impress the industry titan whose career I had followed since college. His company, Vertex Innovations, had revolutionized the tech landscape with its groundbreaking artificial intelligence solutions. Having him interested in my startup felt like winning the lottery. Marcus arrived precisely on time. His 6'2" frame commanding attention in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. His silver-streaked dark hair and sharp features had graced countless magazine covers, and his reputation for being both brilliant and ruthless preceded him. He didn't shake my hand. Instead, he assessed me with steel-gray eyes that seemed to strip away every layer of confidence I'd built over the years. "Let's skip the pleasantries, Ms. Kavari," he said, settling into his chair with the casual arrogance of someone accustomed to having the upper hand. "I've seen your product. Impressive. Interface, decent algorithm. But let's be honest, you're playing in a league you barely understand." I maintained my composure, years of dealing with condescending executives coming in handy. "I appreciate your interest, Mr. Sterling, but I disagree. Our platform has already shown promising results in early trials and—" He cut me off with a wave of his hand. "You've created a tiny ripple in an ocean you can't possibly fathom. Do you know how many startups I've watched sink because they thought they could compete with the big players? Your technology has potential, I'll give you that. But without proper guidance, proper connections, proper protection, you'll be crushed within 6 months." The conversation that followed would ignite a chain of events that would reshape both our lives. Marcus Sterling offered to buy my company at a fraction of its worth. When I declined, his pleasant facade cracked, revealing the predator beneath. His words still echo in my mind. "You're making a grave mistake, Alexandra. In this industry, you're either predator or prey. And trust me, without me behind you, you'll never succeed. You'll be lucky if your company survives the quarter." I left that coffee shop shaken but resolute. What Marcus Sterling couldn't know, was that his threats had just ignited a fire within me that would ultimately consume his entire empire. As I stepped out into the brisk October air, my mind was already formulating a plan. he had revealed something crucial in that meeting: his fear. Beneath all his posturing and threats, Marcus Sterling was afraid of what my technology could do. Little did I know that this realization would set me on a path that would uncover the dark secrets at the heart of Vertex Innovations. Secrets that would ultimately bring one of tech's most powerful men to his knees. As I hailed a taxi back to my modest office in Brooklyn, I couldn't have imagined that in 18 months, I would be sitting in his chair, running his company, and transforming his legacy into something he never could have envisioned. But to understand how I got here, how I turned his attempt to destroy me into the catalyst for his own downfall, you need to know what happened in the days and weeks following that fateful coffee meeting. Because sometimes, the greatest victories come from the moments when someone tells you that you can't succeed. And Marcus Sterling had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had underestimated me. Before that fateful meeting with Marcus Sterling, my life was on an upward trajectory that seemed unstoppable. My company, Neuratrade, had just secured its first round of serious funding, $8 million from a mix of angel investors and venture capital firms. Our AI-driven financial platform was being hailed as a potential game-changer in the industry, capable of predicting market trends with unprecedented accuracy while remaining accessible to smaller investors. Our offices, in Brooklyn's Dumbo district, hummed with the energy of 20 brilliant minds working toward a shared vision. I had handpicked each member of my team, from Sarah Martinez, my brilliant chief technical officer who'd turned down positions at Google and Apple to join my startup, to Dev Patel, our lead AI architect whose innovative approaches to machine learning had helped create our core technology. We weren't just colleagues, we were a family united by the belief that we could democratize financial technology. The industrial chic space with its exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan Bridge had become more than just an office. It was our sanctuary, our innovation lab, our second home. On any given evening, you'd find us gathered around the vintage conference table I'd rescued from a closing law firm, takeout containers scattered among laptops and whiteboards filled with complex algorithms and market projections. My personal life was equally fulfilling. I had recently moved into a modest but charming brownstone apartment in Park Slope, a far cry from my early days sharing a cramped studio with 2 roommates in Queens. Each morning, I'd stop at the local coffee shop where the barista, Maria, knew my order by heart, an oat milk latte with an extra shot of espresso. The regular customers had become familiar faces, and there was a comforting rhythm to my days. The success of Neuratrade had also allowed me to finally help my parents retire. After 25 years of running their small Hungarian restaurant in New Jersey, they could finally relax. I'd surprised them with a vacation to Budapest, their first trip back home in 3 decades. The joy in my mother's eyes when she hugged me goodbye at the airport made every late night and sacrificed weekend worth it. My relationship with the tech community was growing stronger by the day. I had been invited to speak at several prestigious conferences, and our company blog had gained a substantial following. Industry publications were starting to take notice, with TechCrunch featuring us in their Startups to Watch section. We were even in early talks with several major financial institutions about potential partnerships. The weekend before Marcus Sterling entered my life, I had hosted a team celebration at my apartment. We had just successfully launched our beta program, and the initial feedback was overwhelmingly positive. The living room was packed with my employees turned friends, all of us riding high on the promise of what we were building. Sarah had brought her famous homemade sangria, and Dev had convinced everyone to participate in an impromptu karaoke session using our prototype voice recognition software. Looking back, I can still picture that evening perfectly. The warm glow of string lights I'd hung around the windows, the sound of laughter mixing with the soft jazz playing in the background, the sense of infinite possibility that filled the air. James, our head of marketing, had raised a toast. To Alexandra, who saw something in each of us that others missed, and who's building not just a company, but a revolution. That night, As the last guest left and I stood on my small balcony overlooking the tree-lined street, I felt a deep sense of contentment. I had built something meaningful, something that could genuinely help people, and I had done it on my own terms. The industry's old guard might still be dominated by men like Marcus Sterling, but I was proving that success didn't require their playbook of cutthroat tactics and moral compromises. My morning routine hadn't changed despite my growing success. I still took early walks through Prospect Park, using the quiet time to clear my head and plan my day. The local community had become familiar with the tech lady, as they called me. The elderly man who fed the pigeons would wave as I passed, and the young mothers in the playground would sometimes ask for career advice as their children played. The financial stability had also allowed me to restart my passion for oil painting, a hobby I'd abandoned during the lean startup years. I had converted a small corner of my apartment into a studio space, where I would sometimes work late into the night, translating the day's challenges into abstract swirls of color on canvas. It was my way of processing the complexity of building a tech company while staying connected to my creative side. My parents had always worried about my decision to leave my secure consulting job to start NeuroTrade, but now they proudly displayed articles about the company in their restaurant. My father had even learned to use our app, though he still called me regularly with technical questions that made me smile. "Alexandra," he'd say in his thick Hungarian accent, "explain again why the algorithm thinks this stock will go up?" Everything seemed perfectly aligned. A successful company, a talented team, a comfortable life, and the respect of my peers in the industry. I was proving that it was possible to succeed in tech while maintaining your integrity and treating people with dignity. The trade publications were calling NeuroTrade the ethical alternative to the industry giants, and our commitment to transparency and fair practices was attracting attention from socially conscious investors. Little did I know that this carefully constructed life was about to be tested in ways I couldn't imagine. Marcus Sterling's arrival would throw everything into chaos, forcing me to question not just my business strategy, but my entire approach to success. The comfortable world I had built was balanced on a knife's edge, and one cup of coffee was about to send it all tumbling down. The morning after my meeting with Marcus Sterling, I arrived at the office earlier than usual, hoping to process what had happened before my team arrived. The sun was just beginning to paint the Manhattan skyline in shades of gold when my phone buzzed with an urgent message from Sarah. "Turn on CNBC now," it read, followed by 3 exclamation points, unusual for my typically composed CTO. I flicked on the wall-mounted screen just in time to see Marcus Sterling's perfectly composed face filling the frame. He was being interviewed about the future of AI and financial technology, but what he said next made my blood run cold. "We're seeing a lot of amateur attempts to enter this space," he was saying, his trademark smirk firmly in place. "Companies with flashy interfaces, but fundamentally flawed algorithms that could put investors at serious risk. At Vertex, we believe in protecting consumers from these dangerous experiments." Though he never mentioned NeuroTrade by name, the implication was clear. The interviewer pressed him for specifics, and Sterling's response was calculated. "Let's just say there's one particular company that's been making waves lately with claims about democratizing financial AI. Our analysis shows their algorithm has critical security vulnerabilities that could expose users to significant financial risk." My phone started ringing immediately. First Sarah, then Dev, then our lead investors. By the time I'd finished the 3rd call, NeuroTrade Security was trending on Twitter, and our company email was flooded with concerned messages from beta users. Sterling hadn't just threatened me in private, he was orchestrating a public takedown. But it got worse. At 9:15 a.m., our servers experienced a massive DDoS attack. Our platform, which had been running flawlessly for months, suddenly went dark. Dev and his team worked frantically to restore service, but by then, the damage to our reputation was spreading. Tech blogs that had praised us just days before were now publishing skeptical articles questioning our security protocols. "This has to be illegal," Sarah fumed as we huddled in my office watching our stock price plummet. "He's deliberately spreading misinformation. We can sue him for defamation." But I knew better. Sterling's words had been carefully chosen, just specific enough to damage us but vague enough to avoid legal repercussions. The real blow came that afternoon. Jerome Williams, the CEO of First Capital Bank and our most promising potential partner, called to cancel our upcoming pilot program. "I'm sorry, Alexandra," he said, genuine regret in his voice. "But we can't risk our reputation, not with these security concerns in the air." One by one, other potential partners followed suit. By evening, our office felt like a war room. Empty coffee cups littered every surface as my team worked tirelessly to counter the attack and salvage our reputation. That's when we received an email from Vertex Innovations' corporate development team. They were offering to buy us out for exactly 1/10 of our previous valuation. The same deal Sterling had proposed over coffee, now delivered when we were at our most vulnerable. "It was a setup," Dev said quietly, stating what we all had realized. "He never wanted to partner with us. He wanted to destroy us so he could pick up the pieces cheap." The realization hit me like a physical blow. Sterling hadn't just threatened me. He had orchestrated an elaborate plan to force us into submission. I stood at our office windows, watching the lights of Manhattan flicker on as dusk settled over the city. My team waited anxiously for my response to Sterling's offer. They had all seen their stock options losing value by the hour. Some had families to support, mortgages to pay. I couldn't blame them for being scared. That's when I noticed something odd about the data from the DDoS attack. The pattern seemed familiar. I called Dev over, and together we analyzed the traffic. Logs. The attack signature matched known patterns from a security firm that specialized in stress testing financial platforms. A firm that, after some quick research, we discovered was a subsidiary of Vertex Innovations. "He's not just trying to buy us," I said, the pieces finally falling into place. "He's afraid of us. Our algorithm must be better than he's letting on." I thought back to the coffee meeting, to the flash of concern I'd seen in Sterling's eyes when I'd mentioned our success rate. He wasn't trying to protect the market from us. He was trying to protect his market share. I gathered my team, their faces showing a mix of fear and determination. "Sterling thinks he can break us," I said, my voice steady despite the anger burning inside. "He thinks we'll give up and sell out because he's made things difficult. But he's just shown us something incredibly valuable. He's shown us that he's scared." Sarah stepped forward, her expression fierce. "So what's our play?" The others leaned in, and I saw the spark of fight returning to their eyes. "We go on the offensive," I replied, moving to the whiteboard. "But not the way he expects. Sterling thinks he knows our weakness, but he's just revealed his own. He's so focused on destroying us that he's gotten sloppy. That attack today? It's traceable back to him. We don't need to beat him at his own game. We need to change the game entirely." For the next hour, we outlined our counter strategy. While Sterling was busy trying to discredit us in the financial press, we would document everything. Every attack, every false statement, every market manipulation. We weren't just fighting for our company anymore. We were fighting to expose the corrupt practices that had allowed people like Sterling to maintain their power for so long. As midnight approached and the city lights twinkled beyond our windows, I looked at my tired but determined team. "Get some rest," I told them. "Tomorrow, we start fighting back." They filed out one by one, but Sarah lingered. "He doesn't know what he's started, does he?" she said, a slight smile playing at her lips. "No," I replied, turning back to the cityscape, my mind already racing with plans. "But he's about to find out." Little did I know that this was just the beginning. Sterling's attack had set in motion a chain of events that would expose not just his tactics against us, but a whole web of corruption at the heart of the tech industry. The coming weeks would test everything I believed about business, success, and myself. But in that moment, watching my city sparkle in the darkness, I made a silent vow. I wouldn't just survive Sterling's attack. I would use it to build something better than he could ever imagine. That night, sleep was impossible. My apartment, usually a sanctuary of calm, felt like a cage. Every notification on my phone made my heart race. Another investor pulling out, another concerned client, another damaging headline. The digital clock on my nightstand mockingly counted the hours until dawn as my mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. At 3 a.m, I found myself sitting on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the quiet street below. The same street where just days ago I had felt so secure, so certain of my path. Now, everything seemed precarious. The weight of responsibility for my team's futures pressed down on my shoulders like a physical burden. 20 families depended on NeuroTrade for their livelihoods. 20 dreams were intertwined with mine. My phone buzzed again, this time an email from our biggest investor, Hamilton Capital. They were reviewing their position in light of recent developments. The corporate speak couldn't mask their meaning. They were preparing to jump ship. I opened our financial dashboard, the numbers glowing harshly in the pre-dawn darkness. Our runway, which had seemed so comfortable just days ago, now looked frighteningly short if we lost our major investors. The painting corner of my apartment caught my eye, my latest unfinished canvas still on the easel. The abstract swirls of blue and gold that had represented possibility now seemed to mock me. I walked over and touched the dried paint, remembering how my father had always said that every successful person faces a moment that defines them. "It's not the punch that matters," he would say in his thick accent. "It's how you get back up." As if summoned by my thoughts, my phone lit up with his name. He was awake, probably unable to sleep after seeing the news about NeuroTrade. I answered, my voice cracking slightly. "Papa, it's so early." "The restaurant taught me that early mornings are for planning," he said, skipping pleasantries in his typical fashion. "You remember when that big chain opened across the street? Everyone said we would close within months." I did remember. I was 12, and it was the first time I'd seen my father truly worried. The chain restaurant had endless marketing budgets and corporate backing. They had tried to buy out my parents' restaurant for a fraction of its worth, just like Sterling was trying to do to me now. "You didn't give up then," I said softly, the parallel suddenly clear. "No, we got creative. We focused on what they couldn't copy. Our relationships with customers, our family recipes, our story. And who closed within a year? Not us." His voice carried the same determination I remembered from those days. "Alexandra, this Sterling, he's just another bully, with a big checkbook. But you? You have something he can never buy." "What's that?" "The truth. And people who believe in you." He paused. "Your mother wants to empty our savings account to help." "No," I cut him off firmly. "Don't even think about it. I'll figure this out." After saying goodbye, I moved to my home office and opened my laptop. Instead of checking the continuing damage to our stock price, I started researching Marcus Sterling's rise to power. Article after article praised his business acumen, his technological innovations, his market insights. But something felt off about the narrative. I created a timeline of Vertex Innovations' major acquisitions and product launches. A pattern began to emerge. Every major growth spurt in Sterling's company had followed the acquisition of a smaller competitor, usually after that competitor faced sudden, catastrophic technical or reputational challenges. Just like what was happening to us. The sun was rising when Sarah called. "I couldn't sleep either," she said without preamble. "I've been going through our security logs from the attack. You need to see this." I headed to the office immediately, stopping only to grab coffee for the team. I knew I wouldn't be the only one coming in early. Sure enough, Dev was all ready. There when I arrived, his usual neat appearance rumpled from what had clearly been an all-night coding session. "Look at this," Sarah said as soon as I walked in, pointing to her monitor. She had mapped out the pattern of the DDoS attack in detail. It's not just similar to attacks linked to Vertex's security subsidiary. It's identical. They didn't even bother to change their signature. They got sloppy. Dev joined us, running his hands through his disheveled hair. "That's not all. I've been digging into the code of their latest AI release. Remember how Sterling claimed our algorithm was flawed? Well, I found something interesting in their implementation." He pulled up two code windows side by side. One was our core algorithm, the other was Vertex's latest release. Even at a glance, the similarities were striking. "They've been watching us for months," Dev explained. "These patterns, they're unique to our approach. They've been studying our innovation and incorporating it into their system." The realization hit me like a thunderbolt. Sterling hadn't attacked us because he thought we were dangerous to consumers. He'd attacked us because he knew exactly how good our technology was. He wanted to acquire us cheap because he needed our innovations to stay competitive. His entire empire was built on absorbing smaller companies' innovations, and we were just the latest target. I looked at my exhausted but determined team members. How long would it take to document all of this? Every similarity? Every connection between the attack and Vertex? "A few days to build an airtight case," Sarah said. "But Alexandra, even with proof, going against Sterling legally would be suicide. His lawyers would bury us in motions until we ran out of money." "We're not going to fight him in court," I said, a plan finally crystallizing in my mind. "We're going to fight him in the market, and we're going to use his own playbook against him." The next hour was a flurry of activity as we began to outline our counter-strategy. Sterling thought he had us on the ropes, but he had underestimated one crucial fact. When you back a person into a corner, you find out what they're really made of. And I was made of stronger stuff than he knew. The next 48 hours felt like being caught in a hurricane. Sterling's attack on Neuratrade escalated with frightening precision. Our remaining investors started receiving anonymous reports, detailing alleged security breaches in our system. Our job candidates were getting mysterious calls warning them about the company's stability. Even our office landlord contacted us about concerns regarding our lease renewal. But Sterling's biggest move came on Wednesday morning. I was in the middle of an emergency team meeting when James, our head of marketing, burst into the conference room, his face ashen. "They're claiming patent infringement," he announced, his tablet shaking slightly in his hands. "Vertex just filed a lawsuit claiming our core technology violates 6 of their patents." The room erupted in chaos. Dev, our lead architect, was on his feet immediately. "That's impossible. We built everything from scratch. Our approach is completely different from theirs." But I could see the fear in everyone's eyes. Patent litigation could drag on for years, draining our resources and scaring away any potential partners or investors. Sarah pulled up the patent filings on the main screen. As we scrolled through them, my stomach tightened. The patents were recently filed, all within the last month. Sterling had been planning this move even before our coffee meeting. He hadn't invited me to talk about a partnership. He'd been gathering intelligence for his attack. "There's more," James said quietly. "They're seeking an immediate injunction to shut down our platform until the case is resolved." The implications were clear. Even if we could prove the patents were invalid, fighting the injunction would cost millions we didn't have. If granted, it would force us to shut down operations, effectively killing our company before we could defend ourselves. I stepped out of the conference room to take a call from our lead attorney. His assessment was grim. "They've filed in the Eastern District of Texas," he explained. "It's known for being favorable to patent holders. Fighting this will cost at least $2 million in legal fees, and that's being optimistic." When I returned to the conference room, the atmosphere had shifted from panic to resignation. These were brilliant people who had taken a chance on my vision, some turning down secure positions at established companies. Now they were facing the possibility of losing everything. But as I looked around the room, something caught my eye. On Dev's screen was the code comparison he'd shown me earlier, showing how Vertex had borrowed from our innovations. Next to it was the timestamp of their patent filings. A crazy idea began to form. "Dev," I said, interrupting the murmured conversations. "Those similarities you found in their code, how many instances are we talking about?" He pulled up his analysis. "At least 12 clear cases where they've implemented our unique approaches. The pattern matching algorithm, the risk assessment matrix, the user authentication protocol." "And when did these features appear in their code?" He checked. "The data. Most were added in their latest update about 3 months ago." 3 months before they filed these patents, I said, the pieces falling into place. "They didn't just copy our innovations, they're trying to patent them as their own." Sarah's eyes widened as she caught my meaning. "That's why they're moving so fast with the lawsuit. They need to establish their claim before anyone notices the timeline doesn't add up." I moved to the whiteboard and began writing. "Sterling thinks he has us cornered, but he just made a crucial mistake. He's so focused on crushing us that he's left himself exposed." The team gathered around as I outlined my plan. It was risky, perhaps even crazy, but it was our only shot. We would need to move fast, work in complete secrecy, and be prepared for Sterling to hit back hard when he realized what we were doing. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Kavari, this is Thomas Chen, Marcus Sterling's chief of staff. Mr. Sterling would like to meet to discuss an amicable resolution to this situation. He's prepared to be generous." I showed the message to the team. "He thinks we're ready to give up," Sarah said, disgust evident in her voice. "No," I replied. "He's worried. He knows what we might find if we start digging too deeply into their code. This isn't just about shutting us down anymore. It's about covering his tracks." I typed a response. "Thank you, but I'll have to decline. I'm quite busy preparing our defense." The reply came almost instantly. "Don't be foolish, Ms. Kavari. Mr. Sterling is offering you a way out. I strongly suggest you take it." I put my phone away and turned to my team. "Everyone who wants to walk away, now's your chance. What we're about to do will put us directly in Sterling's crosshairs. I won't blame anyone for protecting themselves." The room was silent for a moment. Then Dev stood up. "I didn't leave Google to work for another corporate bully. I came here because I believed in what we were building. I'm in." One by one, others voiced their support. Even our newest hire, a junior developer who'd only been with us for 2 weeks, stood firmly with the team. Looking at their determined faces, I felt a surge of emotion. Sterling might have more money, more lawyers, and more political connections, but he had given me something far more valuable: a team of brilliant people united against injustice. "All right," I said, turning back to the whiteboard. "Let's get to work. We've got 48 hours to set our trap, and we're going to need every minute." The next days would test us in ways we couldn't imagine, but in that moment, something had shifted. We were no longer just fighting for survival. We were fighting to expose the truth about how power really worked in the tech industry. And this time, we had nothing left to lose. The next morning, we arrived at the office to find our security passes deactivated. A notice from building management cited security concerns as the reason for our sudden eviction. Sterling's influence ran deeper than we'd imagined. Within hours, we were forced to pack up our entire operation. Computers, servers, and all. Our research materials. "We can't go to any co-working spaces," Sarah pointed out as we loaded equipment into rental vans. "They'll be watching those. Sterling probably has people monitoring every tech-friendly office space in the city." She was right. We needed somewhere off the grid, somewhere Sterling's network couldn't reach. That's when I remembered my parents' restaurant. The business had moved to a new location years ago, but they still owned the old building in New Jersey. The upper floor had been their living quarters before they moved to the suburbs, and the space had sat empty ever since. "It's not exactly Silicon Valley," I said as we pulled up to the aging 3-story building in a quiet part of Newark. The brick facade needed work, and the windows were dusty, but it had something crucial: anonymity. No one would look for a cutting-edge tech company above an abandoned restaurant in New Jersey. We worked through the night setting up our makeshift office. The old dining room became our main workspace, vintage booths transformed into coding stations. The kitchen, with its industrial-grade electrical system, proved perfect for our servers. Dev rigged up a complex system of mobile hotspots and VPNs to mask our digital footprint. "Let them try to track us now," he said with grim satisfaction. By dawn, NeuroTrade had gone guerrilla. Our team of 20 was cramped but operational. The smell of decades-old cooking oil lingered in the air, mixing with the aroma of fresh coffee and the ozone scent of new electronics. It wasn't pretty, but it was functional. Sarah had taken over my parents' old bedroom as our security center. Monitors covered every surface, tracking both our systems and Vertex's public-facing operations. "They're getting nervous," she reported. "Their attack patterns are becoming more aggressive. They know we're up to something." The pressure was mounting. Our bank notified us that our business accounts were being audited. Another of Sterling's tactics to squeeze us. I had to use my personal savings to set up a new account under a shell company, just to keep our operation running. Every team member took a temporary pay cut, accepting IOUs for the difference. Their trust in me was both inspiring and terrifying. The old restaurant's walls, covered in faded Hungarian travel posters, now held whiteboards mapping out our counter-strategy. We were digging deep into Vertex's code repositories, documenting every instance where they'd stolen our innovations. But we needed more. Dev's eyes lit up. A public demonstration. Show how their copied versions underperform compared to our original algorithms. "Not just underperform," I said, starting to write. "Show how their poor implementation could actually harm users. Sterling accused us of being dangerous to consumers. What if we could prove that his stolen, badly implemented versions of our technology are the real threat?" We worked through the night, outlining our plan. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the dusty windows, Sarah found us surrounded by diagrams and code printouts. "You two look like you've either had a breakthrough or lost your minds," she said, setting down fresh coffee cups. "Maybe both," I admitted. "But I think we've found our way forward." I explained our plan. Instead of just defending against Sterling's attacks or exposing his theft, we would demonstrate the superiority of our original technology. We would show the world not just that he had stolen our innovations, but that his company was actually making technology worse in the process. "It's risky," Sarah warned. "Going public like that will make us an even bigger target." "We're already his target," I replied. "But right now, we're playing his game on his terms. It's time to change the rules." As the rest of the team began to stir, coming downstairs in various states of dishevelment, I looked around the old restaurant. This place had been my family's first stand against corporate bullies who thought money could buy everything. Now, it would serve the same purpose again. Sterling had forced us out of our sleek office thinking he was breaking us. Instead, he had given us exactly what we needed, a reminder of what we were really fighting for. This wasn't just about protecting our company anymore. It was about standing up to a system that valued power over innovation, greed over genuine progress. I touched the worn counter where I'd spent so many hours of my childhood, feeling the strength of my parents' legacy in the smooth wood. "Thank you," I whispered, too quietly for anyone to hear. The day ahead would bring new challenges, but for the first time since Sterling's attack began, I felt truly centered. We had found our ground to stand on, and from here, we would start, pushing back. The call came at 3:47 a.m., just as we were finalizing our counter strategy. The number was blocked, but something told me to answer. The voice on the other end was hushed, nervous. "Ms. Kavari, my name is Rachel Martinez. I used to work for Vertex Innovations. We need to talk." I put the call on speaker, signaling the team to stay quiet. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone," Rachel insisted. "Sterling has everyone monitored. Can we meet?" "I know things that could help you, but we have to be careful. He has people everywhere." We arranged to meet at a 24-hour diner in Jersey City, neutral ground, public enough to be safe, but quiet enough to talk. I chose Sarah and Dev to come with me, leaving the rest of the team to continue our work. The diner was almost empty when we arrived, save for a few late-night truckers and a woman sitting alone in a corner booth, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup. Rachel Martinez looked nothing like I expected. In her early 50s, with silver-streaked dark hair and tired eyes, she had the worn look of someone carrying a heavy burden. As we slid into the booth, she glanced nervously at the door. "I was Vertex's head of product development for 8 years, she began without preamble. "I built their first successful AI platform. At least, that's what everyone thinks." She pulled out a tablet, her hands shaking slightly. "But the truth is, Sterling didn't build any of it. Everything Vertex claims as its own was stolen from smaller companies." Dev leaned forward. "We know about the theft. We've found evidence in their code." Rachel shook her head. "It's bigger than that. Much bigger. Sterling doesn't just steal technology. He destroys the companies he steals from, makes it look like they failed on their own, then swoops in to save them with lowball acquisitions. But here's what you don't know. He's got people inside the patent office, regulatory agencies, even the tech media. The whole system is rigged." She swiped through documents on her tablet, emails, internal memos, financial records. My heart raced as I realized what we were seeing. This wasn't just evidence of Sterling's attacks on us. It was proof of a years-long pattern of corporate espionage and corruption. "Why are you showing us this?" Sarah asked, her voice cautious. "Why now?" Rachel's eyes met mine. "Because you're different. Other companies he targeted, they just wanted to cash out, take his money and disappear. But you're fighting back, and you're getting close to exposing something he can't afford to have exposed." "The patent applications," I said, the pieces clicking into place. "They're not just about our technology, are they?" "No," Rachel confirmed. "Sterling's entire empire is built on stolen innovations. But he got sloppy with your company. He rushed the patent filings, broke his usual patterns. If someone started digging, really digging, the whole house of cards would collapse." A late-night bus rumbled past the diner windows, its headlights briefly illuminating our booth. In that flash of light, I saw tears in Rachel's eyes. "There's more," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sterling's planning something big, a merger with global tech systems. If it goes through, he'll have enough power to control the entire industry. No startup would ever be able to compete. Innovation would die." The magnitude of what we were facing hit me. This wasn't just about saving our company anymore. It was about saving the future of innovation itself. "Why should we trust you?" Sarah asked, still skeptical. This could be another of Sterling's traps. Rachel reached into her bag and pulled out a thumb drive. "Because I'm not just giving you information, I'm giving you access. Everything's here. Internal servers, email archives, financial records. Sterling doesn't know I have it. He thinks I'm still loyal, still his faithful employee." She laughed bitterly. He never imagined his trusted product head would turn against him. "He'll know it was you," I said softly. "Once we use this information, he'll figure it out." "I know. That's why I've already arranged to disappear. There's a teaching position waiting for me in Singapore. I leave tonight. She stood up, leaving the thumb drive on the table. Use it wisely. And Alexandra? Be careful. Sterling's not just powerful, he's desperate. And desperate men are dangerous. After Rachel left, we sat in silence, the thumb drive lying between us like a live grenade. The sleepy diner, with its chipped coffee cups and flickering fluorescent lights, seemed an unlikely place for such a pivotal moment. This changes everything, Dev said finally. With this kind of access. We can prove everything, Sarah finished. Not just the attacks on us, but the whole corrupt system. I picked up the thumb drive, feeling its weight in my palm. No, I said. We can do more than that. We can take his entire empire down. The walk back to our makeshift headquarters was tense, each of us lost in thought. The pre-dawn air was thick with possibility and danger. Rachel's revelations had given us powerful ammunition, but they had also raised the stakes exponentially. We weren't just fighting for our company's survival anymore. We were taking on an entire corrupt system. As we approached the old restaurant building, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street, its engine running. Sarah saw it too. We're being watched, she muttered. Good, I replied, surprising them both. Let them watch. Sterling needs to know we're not hiding anymore. We're coming for him, and this time, we have what we need to finish this. The team was waiting for us upstairs, running on coffee and determination. As I held up the thumb drive, I could feel the weight of the moment. Everything changes now, I announced. Get ready for war. The next 18 hours in our makeshift headquarters felt like stepping through the looking glass. Rachel's thumb drive was a digital Pandora's box, and with each file we opened, the true scope of Sterling's corruption became clearer. We worked in shifts, our team huddled around screens in the old restaurant, processing the mountain of data before us. Look at this, Dev called out around midnight, his voice echoing through the quiet building. Internal emails from 2019. Sterling didn't just target tech companies, he had a whole network of planted employees in venture capital firms, feeding him information about promising startups. Sarah, who had been cross-referencing financial records, looked up from her station at what used to be the dessert counter. That matches the money trails I'm seeing. Shell companies, offshore accounts, all carefully structured to hide where the funds were really going. I moved between workstations, watching as my team pieced together the puzzle. The picture that emerged was staggering. Sterling hadn't built a tech empire. He'd constructed an elaborate web of corporate espionage and market manipulation. Vertex Innovations was less a technology company and more a sophisticated operation for stealing and suppressing innovation. Here's how he did it, James explained, pointing to a flow chart he'd created on one of our whiteboards. First, his plants in VC firms would identify promising startups. Then, his team would analyze their technology. If they found something valuable, Sterling would make a lowball offer to acquire the company. And if they refused? I asked, already knowing the answer. That's where it gets nasty, Sarah interjected, pulling up another set of files. Look at these testing logs. Vertex had a dedicated team for what they called market correction, basically, professional saboteurs. They'd launch coordinated attacks, technical, legal, and PR, all designed to look like the target company was failing on its own. The more we dug, the more personal this felt. We found a document titled Acquisition Targets 2024, with Neuratrade listed among dozens of other companies. Next to each name were detailed notes about vulnerabilities, pressure points, and estimated acquisition values, all far below market rate. But the real breakthrough came at 3 a.m., when Dev discovered a hidden folder in Vertex's source code. Repository. You need to see this, he said, his voice tight with excitement. These are the original code bases from every company Sterling acquired. He kept them all, probably as insurance. I leaned over his shoulder, scanning the files. There it was. Irrefutable proof that Vertex's technology was built entirely on stolen innovations. Not only that, but Sterling had documented everything, arrogant enough to believe his records would never be exposed. "Wait," Sarah said suddenly, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "Cross-reference these dates with the global tech merger documents Rachel mentioned." She pulled up a timeline. Sterling isn't just planning a merger. He's planning to use all this stolen technology to create a monopoly. Once global tech absorbs Vertex, they'll control every major AI innovation of the past 5 years. The implications were staggering. If the merger went through, Sterling wouldn't just destroy competition, he'd strangle technological progress itself. Every new startup would face the same choice: sell to Sterling or be destroyed. As dawn approached, we gathered in what had once been the restaurant's main dining room, surrounded by our findings. The old walls, which had witnessed countless family dinners and celebrations, now held complex diagrams mapping out Sterling's empire of corruption. "We have enough to destroy him," James said, reviewing our evidence. "The patent fraud alone would trigger federal investigations. Add in the market manipulation, corporate espionage, and antitrust violations." "It's not enough," I interrupted, an idea forming. "If we just expose him, someone else will take his place. The system that allowed him to do this will remain intact." I moved to the central whiteboard, beginning to sketch out a new plan. We need to do more than destroy his empire. We need to transform it. The team gathered closer as I outlined my vision. We wouldn't just expose Sterling's corruption, we would use his own methods against him, but instead of destroying innovation, we would liberate it. "Look at these code bases," I said, pointing to Dev's discovery. "Sterling has been sitting on revolutionary technologies, keeping them locked away to maintain control. What if we could release them, not just expose his theft, but return these innovations to their rightful creators?" Sarah caught on quickly. "A lot of those original companies still exist, just struggling after Sterling's attacks, with their original technology restored and Sterling's interference exposed. They could rebuild," Dev finished, excitement building in his voice. "But Sterling will fight back with everything he has, the moment we move against him. He'll try to destroy all the evidence." I agreed. "That's why we need to coordinate this perfectly. One synchronized move that he can't counter." As we refined our plan, I couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Here we were, in my family's old restaurant, planning to take down one of the most powerful men in tech. The humble building that had represented my parents' American dream was now hosting a different kind of revolution. A notification pinged on Sarah's laptop. Another attack attempt from Vertex, still hunting for our location. Let them search, I thought. They had no idea what was coming. "Everyone get some rest," I announced, seeing the exhaustion on my team's faces. "Tomorrow we start putting this plan into action." Sterling thought he could bury us in his graveyard of destroyed companies. Instead, we're going to use his own grave to bring them all back to life. As the team dispersed to their makeshift beds, I stayed behind, looking at the evidence of Sterling's corruption spread across our workstations. In trying to crush us, he had given us exactly what we needed to destroy him. Sometimes I realized the greatest weakness isn't in being underestimated. It's in believing your own lies about being untouchable. Over the next 3 days, our old restaurant headquarters transformed into a war room. Every surface was covered with evidence of Sterling's crimes, each piece carefully documented and cross-referenced. We worked in continuous shifts, knowing we were racing against time. The global tech merger was scheduled for the end of the month, giving us less than 2 weeks to execute our plan. "I've made contact with 3 more former Vertex employees," James announced, hanging up his phone. He had been reaching out to people who had left the company under suspicious circumstances, building a network of witnesses. 2 are willing to testify about Sterling's practices, but they're terrified of retaliation. Sarah looked up from her station, where she was compiling a database of Sterling's market manipulation tactics. Tell them they won't be alone. We've already got 15 former employees ready to come forward, plus Rachel's evidence. Once we move, Sterling won't be able to retaliate against anyone. I was reviewing the forensic analysis of Vertex's code repositories when Dev burst through the kitchen doors, his laptop clutched to his chest. "We've got a problem," he said, his face pale. "Sterling's team just pushed a major update to their systems. They're trying to overwrite the evidence." We gathered around his screen, watching as lines of code scrolled past. Sterling was attempting to cover his tracks, replacing the stolen code with new versions. But he had made a crucial mistake. "He's desperate," Dev explained, pointing to inconsistencies in the update. "Look at these timestamps. They're backdating everything, trying to make it look like they developed these technologies independently, but they're leaving traces everywhere." I smiled, recognizing the opportunity. He's given us exactly what we need. This isn't just evidence of theft, it's evidence of an active cover-up. Just then, my phone buzzed with a message from Jerome Williams, our ally at First Capital. Bank. "Sterling's making moves," the text read. "Massive transfers from Vertex's accounts. Looks like he's preparing for something big." Sarah was already tracking the financial activity. "He's liquidating assets, moving money offshore. Classic. Preparation for a scorched earth defense." She pulled up more data. "But look at this. He's also buying up shares in global tech through shell companies. He's not just running, he's still trying to push the merger through." The pieces clicked into place. Sterling wasn't just trying to hide his past crimes. He was accelerating his plans. If he could complete the merger before we exposed him, he'd be too powerful to touch. We needed to move faster. I gathered the team for a strategy session around what had once been my family's best table for large parties. The irony wasn't lost on me. This table had hosted countless celebrations of small victories. Now it was witnessing the planning of a corporate revolution. "We've been thinking about this wrong," I said, spreading out our evidence. "We've been building a perfect case, trying to make it bulletproof. But Sterling's not going to wait for us to finish. We need to change tactics." Dev leaned forward. "What are you suggesting?" "A triple attack," I replied, drawing on the whiteboard. "First, we release proof of Sterling's code theft to every major tech blog and newspaper simultaneously. Second, we activate our network of former employees to corroborate the story. And third, this is where it gets interesting, we use Sterling's own automated trading systems against him." Sarah's eyes lit up. "The backdoor access Rachel gave us. We could trigger their system to dump Vertex stock at the exact moment the news breaks." "But that's not all," I continued. "Remember those code bases Sterling stole? We're going to release them too, not to the public, but back to their original creators. Every company he destroyed gets their innovation back, along with proof that it was stolen." James whistled softly. "That would create chaos in the market. Sterling's empire would collapse within hours." "Exactly," I nodded. "And in that chaos, while Sterling's trying to stop the bleeding, we make our real move." I outlined the final phase of the plan. It was audacious, possibly insane, but it was also our best shot at not just exposing Sterling, but fundamentally changing the power structure he represented. As we refined the details, a notification popped up on our security monitors. Multiple black SUVs had been spotted circling the neighborhood. Sterling's people were getting closer. "They're going to find us eventually," Sarah warned. "Let them," I replied, my voice firm. "By the time they do, everything will already be in motion." We worked through the night, preparing our attack. Each team member had their role, their targets, their precise timing. We were like a guerrilla army preparing for an assault on a fortress, using Sterling's own weapons against him. Around midnight, I stepped outside for air, the cool night breeze carrying the faint scent of my mother's old spice garden, somehow still surviving in the corner of the parking lot. The lights of Manhattan glittered in the distance. Somewhere over there, Sterling was probably sitting in his office thinking he had us beaten, but he had made the same mistake that every empire builder eventually makes. He had started believing his own mythology. He thought his power made him invincible, that his money could buy anything, that his influence could silence anyone. He was about to learn that some things, integrity, innovation, justice, couldn't be bought or stolen. They had to be earned. And in trying to steal them, he had created the seeds of his own destruction. I went back inside to my team, to our planning, to our revolution. In less than 24 hours, we would light the fuse that would blow Sterling's empire apart. And from its ashes, we would build something better. The confrontation with Sterling came sooner than we expected. I was reviewing final preparations with the team when our perimeter alerts triggered. 6 black SUVs had pulled up outside the restaurant, and Sterling himself stepped out of the lead vehicle, flanked by security guards and what looked like corporate lawyers. "Well," Sarah said, watching the security feed, "at least we don't have to worry about finding him." I straightened my jacket, the same one I'd worn to that first coffee meeting where he'd tried to intimidate me. "Keep everything running according to plan," I instructed the team. "No matter what happens next, don't stop the sequence." As I walked downstairs to meet Sterling, I could hear my father's voice from years ago. "Sometimes, Alexandra, the strongest position is to let your enemy come to you." I opened the restaurant's front door before Sterling could knock, enjoying the flash of surprise on his face. "Ms. Kavari," he said, recovering quickly. "Hiding in a defunct restaurant? I expected better from you." He tried to step inside, but I blocked his path. "No security guards, no lawyers," I said firmly. "Just you and me, Marcus. Or are you afraid to face me without your entourage?" His eyes narrowed, but he motioned for his people to stay back. As he followed me inside, I saw him take in our makeshift headquarters, the sophisticated technical setup contrasting sharply with the worn restaurant interior. "Interesting choice of location," he said, attempting to regain his usual condescending tone. "Though I suppose beggars can't be choosers when they're running from the law." "Running?" I laughed, genuinely amused. "No, Marcus. We've been building. But then, you wouldn't understand that concept, would you? You've never built anything in your life. You've only stolen and destroyed." His facade cracked slightly. "Careful, Alexandra. You're already facing patent infringement charges. Don't add defamation to your problems." I moved to one of our workstations and pulled up a file. The original codebase of his first acquisition, complete with timestamps and developer signatures. "You mean like this patent? The one you stole from TechVantage in 2019 before destroying their company?" I opened another file. "Or maybe this one, taken from Innosys right before you launched your mysterious market correction campaign against them?" Sterling's face paled slightly, but he maintained his composure. "You're playing a dangerous game, Alexandra. Whatever you think you've found." "We found everything, Marcus." I pulled up more files, watching his expression change as he recognized them. "Rachel Martinez says hello, by the way. She kept excellent records." That hit home. Sterling's carefully maintained mask slipped, revealing the predator beneath. "Rachel!" He spat the name. "I gave her everything. Her betrayal will cost her dearly." "That's your problem, Marcus. You think you can own people the same way you steal companies. But loyalty can't be bought or stolen. It has to be earned." Above us, I knew my team was executing our plan. Sterling's empire was already beginning to crumble, though he didn't know it yet. Our evidence was being distributed to journalists, regulators, and the original creators of the stolen technology. His automated trading systems were about to turn against him, and his carefully hidden network of corporate spies was being exposed. "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice hard. Money? A position at Vertex? Name your price. I walked him over to the old counter where I'd spent so many childhood hours watching my parents build their honest business. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't a negotiation. It's not even revenge. This is a revolution. On cue, Sarah sent the signal to my phone. Everything was in position. I turned one of our monitors toward Sterling, showing him real-time data of what was happening to his company. Right now, every major tech publication is receiving proof of your crimes. Your stolen patents are being invalidated. Your hidden accounts are being frozen. The companies you destroyed are getting their technology back. And your precious merger with Global Tech? I smiled as another alert flashed. Their board just called an emergency meeting to cancel it. Sterling lunged for his phone, but it was too late. The cascade had begun. We watched together as Vertex's stock price began to plummet. His empire was collapsing in real time. You're destroying billions in value, he snarled. Years of innovation. Innovation? I cut him off. You mean the innovation you stole? The dreams you crushed? The lives you ruined? No, Marcus. We're not destroying anything. We're setting it free. His composure finally shattered completely. You stupid girl, he growled. You think you can beat me? I own half the tech journalists in New York. I have judges in my pocket. I can bury you so deep. Like you buried Rachel's evidence? I pulled up another screen, showing a live feed of his corporate servers. While we've been talking, my team has been broadcasting everything. Every stolen code repository, every fraudulent patent, every email ordering attacks on competitors. It's all public now. Sterling staggered slightly, gripping the counter for support. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. This will destroy the entire industry, he whispered. No, I corrected him. It will cleanse it. Every company you stole from, every innovation you buried, it's all being returned to its rightful owners. We're not just exposing your crimes. Marcus, we're undoing them. Through the restaurant's windows, I could see camera crews arriving, drawn by the developing story. Sterling's security team looked nervous, checking their phones as news of Vertex's collapse spread. Face it, Marcus. It's over. The only question is whether you'll face it with whatever dignity you have left, or if you'll keep fighting until there's nothing left of your reputation to save. He straightened, adjusting his expensive suit like armor. You have no idea what you've done, he said quietly. No idea what's coming. Actually, I replied, I know exactly what's coming. The question is, do you? As if on cue, Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs. Alexandra, she called down. The SEC is on the line, and you're going to want to see what just happened to the Global Tech board votes. I turned back to Sterling, seeing the last vestiges of his arrogance crumble. Would you like to stay and watch the end of your empire? Or should your security team escort you out before the reporters start asking questions? For a moment, I thought he might actually attack me. But then his shoulders sagged, and I saw the truth. Without his power, his money, his stolen innovations, Marcus Sterling was just another bully who'd finally met his match. As he turned to leave, I called after him. Remember what you told me, Marcus? That I'd never succeed without you? I gestured to the chaos of screens showing his empire's collapse. Looks like you were wrong about that too. The hours following. Sterling's departure were chaos incarnate. Our old restaurant headquarters had become the epicenter of a technological earthquake that was shaking Silicon Valley to its core. News vans clogged the street outside, their satellite dishes creating a forest of metal against the dawn sky. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, investors, regulators, all wanting to know more about the woman who had brought down Marcus Sterling. The SEC is sending a team, Sarah reported, juggling multiple calls. They want every piece of evidence we have. The FBI's cybercrime unit is also interested, especially in the corporate espionage angle. Dev burst in from our makeshift server room. We've got movement in Vertex's systems. Their tech team is trying to purge servers, but we've already backed up everything. More importantly, he paused, his eyes shining with excitement. 3 of the companies Sterling destroyed have already started rebuilding using their recovered technology. They're asking if we want to collaborate. James was coordinating with our network of former Vertex employees turned whistleblowers. They're all safe, he confirmed. Rachel's testimony is being taken in Singapore, and the others are coming forward now that Sterling's influence is crumbling. But amid the triumph, we faced a crucial decision. Vertex Innovations was imploding, its stock price in free fall, its board of directors in emergency sessions. The company that Sterling had built through theft and intimidation was coming apart at the seams, and in the chaos, an unexpected opportunity had emerged. "You need to see this," Sarah said, pulling up a document on our main screen. It was a message from Vertex's board of directors. In the wake of the revelations, they were offering to hand control of the company to us, to me specifically. They saw it as the only way to salvage what remained of their corporate reputation. "They're desperate," James observed. "The board knows they're all potentially liable for Sterling's crimes. They're looking for a way out." I stared at the offer, feeling the weight of the moment. Taking control of Vertex would give us unprecedented resources, influence, and the power to reshape the tech industry. But it would also mean becoming the very thing we had fought against. "What would we even do with Vertex?" Dev asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. That's when an idea began to form. One that would either redefine corporate technology or blow up in our faces spectacularly. I moved to the whiteboard, the same one where we had planned Sterling's downfall. "What if we don't just take over Vertex?" I said, starting to write. "What if we transform it, break it apart and turn it into something entirely new?" The team gathered around as I outlined my vision. Instead of maintaining Vertex as a monolithic corporation, we could split it into autonomous innovation hubs. Each hub would be partially owned by the developers and creators working there, with a mandate to collaborate rather than compete. The infrastructure Sterling built for stealing innovation, we could repurpose it for sharing innovation, Devi said, catching on to the idea. Open source development, shared resources, collaborative research. A network instead of an empire, Sarah added, her eyes lighting up. But the board will never go for it. It's too radical. The board doesn't have a choice, James pointed out. Right now, their only alternative is total collapse and probable criminal charges. As we refined the plan, more alerts kept coming. Sterling had been detained at JFK Airport, apparently trying to flee the country. Global Tech's CEO had resigned. Tech blogs were calling it the biggest shakeup in Silicon Valley history. But we had to move fast. Other players would try to fill the power vacuum Sterling had left. Already rumors were circulating about larger tech companies planning to swoop in and buy Vertex's assets. I gathered my team, the brilliant, loyal people who had stood with me through everything. "This is bigger than just defeating Sterling," I said. "This is our chance to change how the tech industry works. But I won't make this decision alone. We started this together. We'll decide together." One by one, they voiced their support. Even our newest team members who had joined us just before Sterling's attack were all in. They had seen enough of the old way of doing business. They were ready for revolution. I drafted our response to Vertex's board, laying out our conditions. We would take control but on our terms. The company would be restructured, its stolen technologies returned to their rightful creators, its resources redistributed to foster genuine innovation. "They're calling it the tech spring on Twitter," James said, monitoring social media. "The fall of Sterling's empire is inspiring others. 3 more major tech companies are facing whistleblower allegations. The whole industry is starting to self-examine." As I hit send on our proposal to Vertex's board, I felt a profound sense of responsibility. We weren't just taking over a company. We were accepting the challenge of proving that technology could be about more than just power and profit. Whatever happens next, I told my team, remember this moment. Remember that it wasn't just about bringing down Sterling. It was about building something better in his place. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Speaking of building something better, what do we do with this place? She gestured around at our makeshift headquarters, the old restaurant that had sheltered us in our darkest hours. I looked around at the worn walls that had witnessed both my family's immigrant dreams and our technological revolution. We keep it, I said firmly. This is where it all started, and this is where we'll build our future. As the sun rose over Newark, painting the sky in shades of possibility, we began planning the next phase of our revolution. Sterling had tried to bury us, never realizing that he had actually planted a seed. Now it was time to grow something extraordinary in the ashes of his empire. The transformation of Vertex Innovations began on a Monday morning, exactly 1 month after our confrontation with Sterling. I stood in what had once been his corner office, now stripped of its expensive artwork and pretentious decorations. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered the same commanding view of Manhattan, but the perspective had changed entirely. "The board has signed off on everything," Sarah announced, walking in with a stack of documents. "All unanimous votes, if you can believe it. Amazing what the threat of federal prosecution can do for corporate cooperation." The plan we had proposed was revolutionary in its scope. Vertex would be split into 7 independent innovation hubs, each focusing on different aspects of technology development. The stolen intellectual property would be returned to its original creators, along with compensation and opportunities for collaboration. Most importantly, the new structure would ensure that no single person could ever again wield the kind of power Sterling had amassed. "The first group of returning innovators is here," Dev called from the doorway. "They're gathering in the main conference room." I followed him down to what we now called the Restoration Center. The large conference room was filled with faces I recognized from my research into Sterling's victims, brilliant developers and creators whose companies he had destroyed. Some looked nervous, others skeptical, but all shared a cautious hope in their eyes. "Welcome to the new Vertex," I began, standing before them. "Or rather, welcome back to your innovations, your dreams, your future." I outlined how we would not only return their stolen technology, but also provide the resources and support to rebuild what Sterling had destroyed. "Why should we trust you?" one woman asked, her voice carrying years of bitterness. "How are you different from Sterling?" "Because I'm not asking you to trust me," I replied. "I'm asking you to become partners. Every innovation hub will be partially owned by its creators. Decisions will be made collectively. And most importantly, everything we develop will be open and transparent." The atmosphere in the room shifted as I explained the details. These weren't just empty promises. We had already drafted new corporate bylaws that made this structure legally binding. The woman who had questioned me, Dr. Chen from one of the first companies Sterling had destroyed, slowly nodded in approval. Meanwhile, in other parts of the building, different aspects of our plan were unfolding. James was coordinating with tech journalists, ensuring that the full story of Sterling's downfall and our restructuring was being accurately reported. The narrative was crucial. This wasn't just about one company changing, it was about transforming the entire industry's culture. "The SEC investigators just finished their final review," Sarah reported later that afternoon. "They're calling it the most comprehensive corporate fraud case they've ever seen. Sterling's looking at serious prison time." But it wasn't just Sterling facing consequences. His network of corporate spies, corrupt officials, and compromised journalists was unraveling. Each day brought new revelations, new resignations, new investigations. The industry was purging itself of the poison he had spread. The most satisfying, Moment came when we received word that Rachel Martinez had been appointed to head a new industry watchdog group, funded by a consortium of tech companies eager to prove they were different from Sterling. She would be returning from Singapore to lead efforts to prevent future corporate theft and exploitation. By evening, I found myself back in my parents' old restaurant building, where our revolution had begun. We had decided to keep it as our innovation lab, a reminder of where we came from and what we stood for. The team was gathered there, celebrating our first successful day of transformation. "Check this out," Dev said excitedly, pulling up social media feeds. Other tech companies were already following our lead, announcing more transparent practices and collaborative initiatives. The ripple effects of our revolution were spreading. "It's not just about technology anymore," Sarah observed, looking around at the mix of old-world charm and cutting-edge technology that filled the space. "We're changing how people think about success and power." She was right. In the weeks that followed, we saw a fundamental shift in the industry. The myth of the tech titan, the all-powerful figure who controlled innovation, was being replaced by a new model of collaborative development and shared success. The old restaurant became a symbol of this new approach. We kept the original structure but modernized it thoughtfully, creating a space where history and innovation could coexist. The booth where I had faced down Sterling became our main strategy room. The kitchen, where my mother had taught me to cook, now housed a state-of-the-art development lab. One evening, as I was reviewing plans for our next innovation hub, my father stopped by. He stood in the doorway of what had once been his restaurant, taking in the transformation. "You know what I see?" he said, his accent still thick after all these years. "I see the same thing your mother and I dreamed of when we opened this place. A space where people can build something together, where success doesn't mean someone else has to fail." I hugged him, understanding for the first time how my journey had been a continuation of theirs. They had come to America to build something honest and good. I had fought Sterling to protect the same values. As the sun set over Newark, casting long shadows through the restaurant's windows, I looked at what we had built from the ashes of Sterling's empire. It wasn't just a company anymore. It was a movement. A proof that innovation didn't need to come at the cost of integrity, that success didn't require crushing others. Sterling had told me I would never succeed without him. He had been wrong about that, just as he had been wrong about everything else. True success wasn't about power over others. It was about empowering others. And in the end, that was the most innovative idea of all. The repercussions of Sterling's downfall rippled through the tech industry like a tidal wave, touching every corner of Silicon Valley and beyond. In the weeks following our takeover of Vertex Innovations, I watched as the empire he had built, through theft and intimidation, transformed into something entirely different, something revolutionary. The press called it the Great Tech Reformation. Every day brought new headlines about companies following our lead, embracing transparency and collaborative innovation. The fortress-like offices of major tech companies, once symbols of corporate secrecy and power, were being redesigned into open innovation hubs. The very language of the industry was changing, from disruption and domination to collaboration and shared growth. Sterling's arrest made international news. The image of him being led out of his Hamptons mansion in handcuffs, his perfectly tailored suit wrinkled from a night of hiding from federal agents, became a symbol of the end of an era. The man who had once graced magazine covers as a tech visionary was now the face of corporate corruption. But the real story wasn't about Sterling's fall. It was about what rose from the ashes of his empire. The 7 innovation hubs we created from Vertex's remains were already producing remarkable results. Dr. Chen, who had initially questioned our motives, was now leading our AI ethics hub, working with a team of researchers to ensure technology served humanity rather than exploiting it. "You need to see this," Sarah said one morning, bringing her laptop into my office. No longer Sterling's austere corner suite, but a collaborative space filled with whiteboards and comfortable furniture. She pulled up a series of graphs showing the performance metrics of our new structure. The data was stunning. Innovation output had increased by 300% in just 3 months, while employee satisfaction scores were at record highs. The return of stolen technologies to their rightful creators had sparked a renaissance of innovation. Companies that Sterling had crushed were rebuilding, their original founders now partnering with us to develop their ideas properly. The patent office had to create a special task force just to handle the volume of innovations being properly registered and shared through our new open collaboration framework. The human impact was even more profound. Rachel Martinez's whistleblower protection program had inspired others to come forward throughout the industry. Stories of corporate abuse and stolen innovations poured in, each one leading to investigations and reforms. The culture of fear that Sterling had cultivated was being replaced by one of courage and integrity. But not everyone celebrated our revolution. Old guard tech executives, seeing their power structures threatened, launched a coordinated campaign against us. They claimed our model was unsustainable, that innovation required strong central control, that we were destroying shareholder value. Their arguments fell flat when our first quarterly results showed record profits, all while maintaining our commitment to ethical innovation. The most surprising consequence came from an unexpected quarter. Universities and research institutions began approaching us, interested in adapting our collaborative model for academic research. Our innovation hubs became bridges between academia and industry, fostering a new kind of knowledge exchange that benefited everyone. "Remember when Sterling said I'd never succeed without him?" I asked Sarah one evening as we watched the sunset from the rooftop garden we'd built atop the old restaurant. He never understood that real success isn't about control, it's about creation. The transformation wasn't just corporate. Our team members, once focused solely on their specific roles, were now thinking like entrepreneurs and innovators. Dev, our brilliant but formerly introverted lead developer, was now mentoring a group of young programmers, teaching them not just coding, but ethical development practices. James had transformed our marketing department into a transparency hub, regularly publishing detailed reports about our development processes and decision-making. The very aspects of our business that Sterling had kept hidden became our greatest strengths. Even the physical spaces we occupied told the story of our transformation. The old restaurant, where we had plotted Sterling's downfall, became an incubator for small tech startups. We maintained its original character while adding modern amenities, creating a space that honored both tradition and innovation. The contrast between the worn brick walls and cutting-edge technology became a perfect metaphor for our approach to progress. The legal aftermath of Sterling's empire continued to unfold. The SEC's investigation expanded to include dozens of other companies and executives who had participated in his scheme. Each new revelation confirmed the wisdom of our radical transparency approach. We weren't just changing one company, we were helping to cleanse an entire industry. 1 year to the day after our confrontation with Sterling, I received a letter from him. Written from his detention center while awaiting trial, it was both a confession and a warning. "You've dismantled everything I built," he wrote, "but you'll soon learn that power corrupts everyone eventually. Your idealistic model won't survive the real world." I pinned his letter to the wall of our main innovation hub, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Below it, I posted our quarterly impact report. Thousands of jobs created, hundreds of patents properly attributed, dozens of new companies spawned from our collaborative framework. The numbers told a different story than Sterling's dire predictions. The aftermath of our revolution proved that success didn't require sacrifice of principles. In fact, our ethical approach had created more value, more innovation, and more opportunity than Sterling's empire ever had. We had shown that the future of technology didn't belong to isolated geniuses in corner offices, but to communities of innovators working together for common good. As I watched our transformed company flourish, I realized that the true aftermath of Sterling's fall wasn't just the dismantling of his corrupt empire. It was the birth of a new way of thinking about power, innovation, and success in the modern world. 2 years after my fateful coffee meeting with Marcus Sterling, I found myself back in that same expensive Manhattan cafe. The leather chairs were still impossibly comfortable, the cappuccinos still overpriced, but everything else had changed, including me. I'd chosen this spot deliberately, wanting to reflect on the journey that had transformed not just my life, but an entire industry. The barista recognized me now, not from my regular visits, but from the countless news articles and magazine covers that had chronicled our revolution. "The usual?" she asked, and I smiled, remembering how intimidated I'd once felt in this temple of corporate power. Now it was just another coffee shop, and I was just another customer, albeit one who had helped reshape the tech world. I opened my laptop, pulling up the speech I was preparing for next week's Tech Ethics Summit. The invitation to be the keynote speaker had come as no surprise. Our transformation of Vertex had become a case study in ethical innovation. But as I reviewed my notes, I realized that the real story wasn't in the statistics or the structural changes. It was in the profound shifts in thinking that had occurred. Sarah joined me, sliding into the chair across from mine, the same chair where Sterling had once sat and threatened to destroy everything I'd built. "Feeling nostalgic?" she asked, noting our location. "Reflective," I corrected, closing my laptop. "Do you remember how terrified we were after that first meeting with Sterling? How impossible everything seemed?" She laughed, a sound that would have been unthinkable in this space 2 years ago. "I remember thinking you were either brilliant or crazy when you suggested we fight back. Probably both. The truth was, the journey had changed all of us in ways we hadn't expected." Dev, our once shy lead developer, had recently testified before Congress about the importance of ethical AI development. James had published a book about transparent corporate communications that was becoming required reading in business schools. Even our newest team members carried themselves with a confidence that came from knowing they were part of something revolutionary. But the most profound changes were internal. The experience had taught us lessons that went far beyond business strategy or technical innovation. We'd learned about the true nature of power, the importance of community, and the relationship between ethics and success. "You know what I think about most often?" I asked Sarah, watching the morning crowd of executives hurry past our window. Not the confrontation with Sterling, or even the moment we took control of Vertex. I think about that night in my parents' old restaurant, when everyone chose to stay and fight. That's when I realized that real power isn't about control. It's about inspiration. It didn't always come from grand strategies or brilliant innovations. Sometimes it came from simple choices. Choosing to fight instead of surrender, choosing to build instead of destroy, choosing to trust instead of fear. We'd not only survived Sterling's attempt to destroy us, we'd created something he could never have imagined, a future where success and ethics weren't just compatible, but inseparable. And in doing so, we'd proved that the most powerful revolution isn't the one that destroys what's wrong, it's the one that builds what's right. 5 years after Marcus Sterling's empire crumbled, I stood on the stage of our annual Innovation Summit, looking out at faces that represented the future we had fought to create. The old restaurant, now expanded into a sprawling campus of interconnected buildings in Newark, hosted developers, entrepreneurs, and innovators from around the world. Each of them carried a piece of the revolution we had started. The morning, sun streamed through the skylights we'd added to the original building, illuminating the space where my parents had once served traditional Hungarian dishes. Now it was filled with workstations, collaboration spaces, and most importantly, people who believed in the power of ethical innovation. The old kitchen still stood at the heart of the complex, preserved as a reminder of where it all began. Innovation isn't just about creating new technology. I began my keynote address. my voice carrying through the space where I had once hidden from Sterling's threats. It's about creating new possibilities. 5 years ago, we proved that success doesn't require sacrifice of principles. Today, we're proving that principles can be the foundation of even greater success. The numbers backed up my words. Our network of innovation hubs had spawned over 300 new companies, each built on the principles of collaborative development and ethical innovation. The tech industry, once dominated by corporate giants like Sterling's Vertex, had transformed into an ecosystem of interconnected creators, each contributing to a larger vision of progress. Sarah, now our chief ethics officer, sat in the front row, nodding as I spoke. She had been instrumental in developing our framework for ethical innovation, a model now adopted by companies and universities worldwide. Next to her, Dev led our Advanced Development Division, his team responsible for breakthroughs in AI safety and accessible technology. The future we imagined, I continued, wasn't just about changing who held power. It was about changing the nature of power itself. When Marcus Sterling told me I'd never succeed without him, he was operating under an old definition of success, one based on control, dominance, and exclusion. Today, we define success by how many people we empower, how much value we create for society, and how well we preserve our principles while pursuing progress. The transformation hadn't been easy. There had been resistance, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but each challenge had only strengthened our conviction that we were on the right path. The old restaurant, with its worn brick walls and modern additions, stood as a perfect metaphor for our approach, honoring the past while building the future. After my speech, I walked through our campus, stopping to chat with teams working on various projects. In one room, formerly the restaurant's storage cellar, a group of developers was collaborating with ethicists on an AI system designed to protect user privacy. In another, once the upstairs apartment where my family had lived, young entrepreneurs were pitching their ideas to mentors from our network. James caught up with me near the original entrance, where the old restaurant sign still hung. "You'll want to see this," he said, pulling up a news alert on his tablet. Sterling was being released from prison, having served his sentence for corporate fraud and racketeering. "Are you worried?" James asked, studying my reaction. I smiled, remembering the fear that name had once inspired. "No," I replied honestly. "Sterling's world doesn't exist anymore. We've built something stronger than his empire ever was." The proof was all around us. Where Sterling had built walls, we had created bridges. Where he had hoarded innovation, we had fostered collaboration. His model of success through domination had been replaced by success through contribution. The very language of technology had changed, from disruption to enhancement, from competition to cooperation. Later that afternoon, I met with a group of students from our mentorship program. They came from backgrounds similar to mine, children of immigrants, outsiders to the traditional tech world, driven by dreams of making a difference. Looking at their eager faces, I saw the future we had fought to create. "The most important lesson I learned," I told them, "wasn't about technology or business strategy. It was about the power of staying true to your principles, even especially, when someone tells you that principles are a weakness." The day ended with a small gathering in the original dining room. My parents were there, my father beaming with pride as he watched young innovators work in the space where he had once served meals. My mother, who had taught me my first lessons about integrity and perseverance, hugged me tightly. "You've built something beautiful," she whispered in Hungarian. "Not just a successful company, but a place where dreams can grow." As the sun set over Newark, casting long shadows through the windows of our transformed space, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. Sterling had tried to force me into a choice between success and principles, never understanding that the greatest success comes from standing firmly by your principles. The empire I now led wasn't built on power over others, but on empowering others. It wasn't maintained through fear and control, but through trust and collaboration. Where Sterling's Vertex had been a fortress, our innovation network was a garden. A place where ideas could take root, where innovation could flourish, where success meant helping others succeed. My phone buzzed with a message from Rachel Martinez, who now ran the industry's largest ethics oversight organization. She was sharing news about another tech company adopting our collaborative model. The revolution we had started was still spreading, still growing, still transforming the industry. Standing in the doorway of what had once been my family's restaurant, now the heart of a global innovation movement, I felt a profound sense of completion. Sterling had been wrong about everything, about success, about power, about the future of technology, but his greatest mistake had been in thinking that he could break someone who refused to be broken. The new beginning we had created wasn't just about technology or business. It was about proving that integrity wasn't a liability, but an asset. That community wasn't a weakness but a strength, that the future belonged not to those who could dominate others, but to those who could inspire others to achieve their dreams. As the lights of our campus illuminated the evening sky, I knew that this wasn't just a new beginning for me or our company. It was a new beginning for the entire concept of innovation itself. And that was the greatest success of all.